desperate scream echoes against cold stone walls, then is abruptly cut off. In the darkness beneath the royal bedchamber, savage snarls and the wet crack of bone fill the air. Wild dogs, half-starved and merciless, tear into their prey. A man still alive, thrown to them as meat. High above, a silhouetted figure watches from a secret trapdoor. Her eyes are cold, unblinking. Queen Joanna of Naples has fed another lover to her beasts. Joanna of Naples was no ordinary medieval monarch. By day, she ruled a kingdom embroiled in intrigue. By night, whispers say, she indulged in pleasures that ended in unspeakable horror. Ruling in the early 15th century as a rare female sovereign, Joanna's reign was bloody and controversial. She earned a reputation that made even hardened men tremble. This queen's name became synonymous with cruelty, and for good reason. According to legend, any man who shared her bed would never leave it alive. Some called her a seductress, others a monster. The truth, shrouded in rumor and fear, is more disturbing than anyone imagined. And as we delve into Joanna's story, brace yourself. The worst is yet to come. Our tale unfolds in the Kingdom of Naples, a rich prize on the Italian peninsula, coveted by powerful dynasties and rival popes. In 1414, Princess Joanna, at 40 years old, unexpectedly inherited the throne after her brother's sudden death. Medieval Europe scoffed at the idea of a woman ruling alone. From the moment she donned the crown, Joanna was surrounded by predators in her own court. To secure her position, she married a French prince, James of Bourbon. She hoped for an ally. Instead, she got a traitor. Shortly after their wedding, James betrayed Joanna in a stunning coup. One dark night in the palace, his men seized Pandolfello Alopo, Joanna's loyal advisor and rumored secret lover. In a courtyard lit by flickering torches, James's henchmen dragged Alopo before a block. There was a flash of the executioner's blade, and Alopo's severed head thudded into a basket. Blood slicked the stones as a chilling warning to the queen. No one was safe from her new husband's ambition. Joanna herself was locked in her chambers under armed guard, a queen in captivity within her own castle. But if James thought he had broken the queen, he gravely underestimated her. Outraged by the usurper's brutality, a cadre of Joanna's loyal nobles and mercenaries rose up in rebellion. Steel clashed in the palace halls as Joanna's supporters stormed her prison. Guards were cut down, their dying screams ringing through the corridors. After days of tense struggle, James was captured and forced to his knees. The very people he tried to rule turned on him. He was stripped of power, led away in chains from Naples by 1419, humiliated and defeated. Joanna emerged from the ordeal, hardened and unbowed. She had nearly lost her throne and life to a man who should have protected her. Never again, she vowed, would she let love make her vulnerable. The betrayal she endured set the stage for the horrors to come, forging a queen who learned that fear could be as potent a weapon as any sword. Free from her treacherous husband, Queen Joanna ruled alone and on her own terms. Yet she was still surrounded by ambitious men who hungered for her favor. The queen began to take lovers, indulging her desires but never relinquishing control. Young nobles, dashing knights, even handsome commoners caught her eye. One by one, they were invited into the royal bedchamber. Each man believed he might be the one to steal the queen's heart. But each was playing a deadly game. As Joanna's confidence grew, so did her ruthlessness. She had learned that a pretty face could hide a deadly threat. Any hint of disloyalty, any whisper that a lover schemed for her throne could seal that man's fate. One such favorite was a charming courtier whose easy smile and golden hair captivated the middle-aged queen. He became her constant companion, showered with gifts and titles. For a time, he enjoyed wealth, power, and the queen's warm embrace. But pride and ambition swelled within him. Servants overheard him boasting late at night, drunk on wine and vanity, that Joanna could not rule without him. Some say he even dared to suggest that he should be king by her side. It was a fatal mistake. The moment those words reached Joanna's ears, her blood ran cold. In public, she remained calm, smiling at him over lavish feasts as if nothing had changed. In private, she decided this man had to die. There would be no formal charges, no trial in any court. His crime was betrayal of the queen's trust, and the sentence would be delivered in secret. Joanna began to plot her lover's gruesome end, ensuring that by the time he realized his peril, it would be far too late. Late one night, under the guise of intimate play, Joanna led her unsuspecting lover to an ornate bedchamber deep within Castel Nuovo, Naples' ancient castle fortress. The room was lit by trembling candles that cast long, dancing shadows on the walls. The air hung heavy with the scent of incense and something else, a faint odor of damp stone and decay. Joanna kissed him and whispered soft words, guiding him to the center of the room. The lover's pulse quickened, but he noticed nothing amiss. He did not see the subtle mechanism that the queen's handmaiden triggered as she quietly slipped out. Suddenly, with a grinding of gears, the floor gave way beneath his feet. The man's flirtatious laughter turned into a shriek of pure terror as the trapdoor sprang open. For a heartbeat, he hung suspended in midair. Then he plunged into darkness. The queen stepped back to avoid the rush of air and dust as her victim fell through the hidden opening. She watched, eyes cool and intent, as he tumbled into the black pit below. The lover's body hit the stone floor with a dull crack, shattering bone. He lay in utter darkness, gasping in pain. The wind knocked from his lungs, his legs twisted and broken from the fall. Above, the trapdoor slid shut again, sealing him in a tomb-like abyss. For a moment there was silence apart from the injured man's ragged breathing and whimpers. Then came a sound that froze his blood, the soft padding of paws on stone. One pair, then another, and another. From the shadows, dozens of glowing eyes appeared, circling. The darkness came alive with low growls. The stench of fetid breath and bloody slobber grew thick around him. Only now did the awful truth dawn on the doomed lover. Joanna had not just thrown him into a dungeon, she had thrown him to her pets. A monstrous snarling erupted as the first wild dog lunged, teeth sinking into the man's arm. He screamed, a high, panic-stricken wail that echoed up through narrow cracks in the floor. The pack of wild dogs, lean and ravenous, closed in. They were mangy beasts imported from distant lands or bred from feral hounds, creatures trained to know the taste of human flesh. The man's screams soon became an agonized chorus as teeth tore into muscle and ripped skin. In the frenzy, one dog clamped onto his shoulder, shaking its head violently until a chunk of meat came away in its jaws. Another latched onto his leg, which snapped with a sickening crunch. Warm blood spattered on the stone walls and pooled beneath him as the dogs began to feed while he still lived. High above, Queen Joanna listened from behind a concealed grate, her face lit by the flicker of a single candle. Not a flinch, not a tremor disturbed her composure as she heard the pleas turn to gurgles and then to wet, choking sobs. The brutal feeding went on for several minutes, punctuated only by the frenzied yelps of the hounds and the victim's fading moans. Finally, a last shuddering breath echoed from the pit, and then only the sounds of slurping and bones cracking remained. Joanna closed her eyes and inhaled deeply. as if in relief. Another inconvenient lover had been erased. Come morning, loyal servants would gather whatever fragments remained of the poor soul, perhaps a gnawed femur or a few scraps of cloth, and toss them into the sea without ceremony. To the kingdom, this man would simply have vanished without a trace. And the queen? She would smile and go about her day, untouched by the carnage beneath her floors. But that was just the beginning of Joanna's bloody methods. There were other lovers, other knights, and each met a similarly ghastly fate. Some whispered that the queen occasionally descended into the pit herself after the dogs were sated, to observe the gore and ensure her secrets were utterly destroyed. True or not, the rumors alone were enough to terrify anyone at court. Joanna had perfected a weapon of terror few could have imagined, using intimacy as a trap and turning lust into a death sentence. In the light of day, Queen Joanna of Naples appeared every inch a gracious ruler, attending mass, holding court in silk and jewels, dispensing patronage to the arts. But the whispers never ceased. In taverns and marketplaces, people spoke in hushed tones of the queen's nightly cruelties. How many lovers had vanished? 5? 20? No one could be sure. Servants traded dark stories while looking over their shoulders, fearful the queen's spies might hear. The nobles of Naples learned to behave with utmost obedience around Joanna, for if even her bedmates could end up as dog food, what hope would a disloyal courtier have? Fear permeated the palace. Some of Joanna's top advisors were effectively hostages to her favor. They knew a fall from grace could mean a literal fall into the dungeon pit. In this way, the queen maintained her grip on power, through seduction and terror intertwined. Yet her brutality did not stop with lovers. On occasion, her wrath swept up anyone who crossed her path. One terrifying example lingered in the chronicles: the destruction of an entire town. As the story goes, one of Joanna's ladies-in-waiting, renowned for her beauty, was abducted by brigands while traveling through the small town of Satrianum. When the queen learned that this insult had occurred on her watch, she flew into a rage. Joanna ordered a merciless retribution. The town of Satrianum was to be wiped off the face of the earth. Her army descended without warning at dawn. They put the town to the torch and sword, sparing no one. Homes burned as families still slept inside. Villagers who ran screaming into the streets were cut down by mercenaries or trampled under war horses. Blood flowed in the gutters. Flames devoured church and market alike. By sunset, Satrianum was nothing but a smoldering ruin blanketed in ash and charred corpses. The queen's horrific message was clear: no one would dare defy or offend Joanna of Naples and live. Indeed, centuries later, only a lone, crumbling tower stands where Satrianum once did, silent witness to her vengeance. Was her savagery effective as a deterrent? In the short term, yes. Joanna's vassals feared her deeply. Few dared whisper dissent while she reigned. The queen had carved out a kind of ruthless stability, but her dark tactics also backfired in time. The very nobles who quaked in fear also plotted behind her back, determined to protect themselves and the kingdom from her excesses. In 1432, when one favorite-turned advisor became too powerful, Joanna herself became uneasy. That man, Sergianni Caracciolo, had been by her side for years, executing her will, and perhaps sharing her bed, as he amassed influence. But even he was not safe from the queen's paranoia. On a hot August night, conspirators, likely with Joanna's blessing, crept into Sergianni's chamber. By the next morning, his lifeless body was found in a pool of blood, pierced by countless stab wounds. Joanna had lost a confidant, but eliminated a potential threat. It was a grim pattern. Trust no one completely. love no one fully. By the end of her reign, the queen was surrounded by ghosts of those she had destroyed, and courtiers who masked their terror behind forced smiles. Joanna of Naples' story forces us to confront the unsettling extremes of power and fear. Here was a woman who started as a victim, imprisoned and betrayed by those who saw her as weak. In response, she became a predator in her own right, wielding fear like a knife. Her tale is a dark reflection on how absolute power can twist into absolute cruelty. Did Joanna truly feed her lovers to wild dogs, or has legend exaggerated her crimes? We know that in a world ruled by men, she felt she had to be more ruthless than any man just to survive. But at what cost? The queen earned infamy that has outlived her by centuries. People still debate if she was inherently evil or a product of the brutal era she lived in. In the end, Joanna died peacefully in 1435, one of the last of her dynasty, taking her secrets to the grave. Yet the horrors attributed to her linger on as cautionary tales. Her life asks us chilling questions. How far would you go to hold on to power? When does the struggle for survival turn into something monstrous? And perhaps most hauntingly, if you had been one of Joanna's courtiers, would you have dared to love her, knowing the terrible fate that might await? Thank you for walking this dark path through history with me. Queen Joanna's bloody reign is a story of terror, betrayal, and the lengths one will go to stay in power. How does her story make you feel? I invite you to share your thoughts and reactions in the comments. Let's discuss this queen's legacy of fear. If you found this tale gripping and horrifying, make sure to subscribe for more journeys into the shadows of history. We explore the lives of those who met gruesome ends and those who dealt them. And stay tuned. If you thought Joanna's cruelty was shocking, just wait until you hear about the man whose intestines were pulled out while he was still alive. There are more dark stories to uncover. Until next time, remember, the pages of history are filled with nightmares. We need only dare to look.